Hey, Dave.
Hey Kevin, good to see you again. How can I help you today?
Well, I saw this video about different Bible versions, and I use the NIV, and it has made me wonder about whether or not it's okay to use.
That's a good question. A lot of people have different opinions about this, so let's address your concerns. What did the video say?
The first thing they said was that the King James Version is the most accurate version. Is this true?
When you consider accuracy in the translation of the Bible, you have to look at both the transliteration of each word and what the meaning of the combination of the words represents. The pure text of the Bible has been preserved, as David said in Psalms 12:7, in their original languages. From that, there are many versions of the Bible. Some of them are intended to be easier to read and are translated thought for thought. Others are intended to be more of a transliteration and are almost word for word. Actually, looking at word for word translations, the King James Version is about a quarter of the way up the scale. Young's literal translation, the English Standard Version, the New American Standard Bible, and many others are more accurate word for word translations. The New International Version is on the low end of the thought for thought translations. It is among the closest to word for word translations. It is easier to read and understand, while still accurately depicting each thought in the original Greek and Hebrew texts. If I were to speak to an audience of translators in a foreign language, each of them would use a different phrasing to translate to you what I had said. Some would simply translate my speech word for word, while others would paraphrase what I had said using terms that are more common in the language of the people they would be translating for.
Wow. That makes a lot of sense. The video also said that other versions remove words and add words in. I guess that explains why someone might think that. But they also said that some versions remove whole verses. What about that?
Some versions do have a few verses missing, but that is because of the different manuscripts used for translation. Most translations use the Westcott texts, which do not have some verses from the Textus Receptus. These almost always contain footnotes containing the text of the missing verses. To my knowledge, there are no passages in the translations using the Westcott texts in which the meaning of the passage is changed due to the omitted verses.
Okay, one of the examples that the video gave was 2 Timothy 2:15, where the KJV says to study, but the NIV says to do your best. Why is the word study changed to the phrase do your best?
The word study there is from the Greek word spoudazo. That Greek word is used in the Bible 11 times. It is translated in the King James Version to endeavor, do diligence, be diligent, give diligence, be forward, labor, and study. It is only translated to mean study in that single place. I personally feel that the phrase do your best fits in with the most common translations of the Greek word. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I can see that endeavoring and doing your best are pretty much the same, as well as all the rest of the definitions you gave. The word study is actually a little weird there considering the way the word is translated in the rest of the Bible. What about Isaiah 14:12, where the NIV says morning star, in place of the KJV's Lucifer?
That's another good question. Interestingly, the new KJV has a footnote added to the word Lucifer there that says, and I quote, literally, day star. This is because Lucifer means light bearer. The word there in the Hebrew text is halel. It is a derivative of the word halal, a primitive root meaning to shine or flash forth light. Most other versions translated this to the phrase day star, shining star, or shining one. The NIV is the only version I know of that uses morning star, and the KJV is among the very few who use the name Lucifer in place of the more descriptive term given in the original text.
Oh. So the people who made that video had no clue that the KJV actually removed a descriptive phrase from the original text and replaced it with a name. This is really interesting finding out about these differences. That video also mentioned Micah 5:2. They said that the NIV uses ancient days, instead of everlasting, and that the NIV puts it in a way that means that God has a beginning. What's the real story there?
That video sure quoted a lot of verses without doing much homework first, didn't they? This Hebrew word is Olam, which can be summed up as meaning long duration, antiquity, everlasting, perpetual, ancient time, long time, or forever. In fact, the King James Version even translates it to ancient 5 times. Gesenius's lexicon defines it as the beginning or end of which is either uncertain or else not defined. I would agree that the term everlasting is definitely more accurately descriptive of God, but I would also have to say that the NIV is also accurate in their direct translation of the Hebrew word to ancient times.
The video did say that the NIV has everlasting in the footnotes. I guess that would be because everlasting is more accurately descriptive, while ancient times is more accurately translated. I can see that it's really important if you really want to study God's Word, that you should look at more than one translation, and also look at the definitions of the original Greek and Hebrew words. I'm enjoying learning about these things though, so let's continue going over the stuff from the video. What about Mark 6:11, where the NIV doesn't have the sentence from the King James Version, "Verily I say unto you, it shall be more tolerable for Sodom and Gomorrah in the day of judgment, than for that city"?
Sure thing, we can keep going as long as you like. The difference here goes back to the minor differences in the text as we set this versus the Westcott Hort texts. You can read the passage for yourself and decide if the meaning is changed without the extra sentence. I personally don't feel that the meaning is changed at all.
Okay, the next one was a series of verses where the word worship is replaced by the word knelt. The verses listed were Matthew 9:18, Matthew 15:25, Matthew 18:26, and Mark 5:6. There's a big difference between kneeling and worshiping, so what about this?
All right, this one is from a Greek word, proskinio, which likely comes from a joining of 2 root words. The first word is pros, simply meaning to or toward. The second word is kuon, meaning a dog or a man of impure mind. The words are joined in a way to imply the meaning toward like a dog or toward like a man of impure mind. The KJV universally translates this word to mean worship. The word definitely can be translated to worship, but the actual meaning is a little more broad and includes bowing, kneeling, prostration, doing homage, or any other form of obeisance for respect or supplication. The NIV also accurately translates this word to worship when it more accurately describes the actions performed in the passage. For example, Matthew 2, verses 2, 8, and 11, Matthew 28, verses 9 and 17, Luke 4, 8, and so on.
You've studied these passages a lot, haven't you?
Yes. I've had a lot of people try to argue with me about the differences in Bible translations, and I had to do a lot of research and look at each of their arguments in order to make sure that I wasn't deceived. Did that video have any more arguments?
Yes, it had several more. I'll try to hurry through them. The next one was Mark 1:2. The KJV says, prophets, while the NIV says, Isaiah. The video claims that the passage is not found in Isaiah, but in Malachi. I looked up the verse, and they were right about that. Why does the NIV say Isaiah?
The text as we set us uses the word prophets, while the Westcott Hort texts use Isaiah. The quote from verse 2 of Mark chapter 1 is found in Malachi, but the quote from the next verse is found in Isaiah. Prophets is technically more accurate, since this is a mixed quote from 2 different prophets. However, only naming one of them is not incorrect either. Mark 1, verse 3 is a quote from Isaiah 40, verses 3 and 4.
Okay, so it isn't a false prophecy like the video said, they just didn't read the whole passage before passing judgment. Let me guess, Revelation 1:11 is also a difference between the text does receptus, and the Westcott Hort text too, isn't it?
You're getting quite good at this. It most certainly is.
They said that this attacks the deity of Christ, but considering the number of other places that the deity of Christ is confirmed in the NIV, it would be pretty silly to remove this one instance, wouldn't it? Now this next one really confused me. 2 Samuel 21, verse 19 says that Elhanan killed Goliath in the NIV, but the KJV says it was the brother of Goliath. Is this because of the different texts as well, and why would the NIV be translated from a text with such an obvious error in it?
Actually, no. This one is an instance where the KJV added to the text. You'll see that the words, the brother of, are in a different font, usually italics, or they might be enclosed in square braces. The KJV and the NIV share a common text, the Masoretic text, for this part of the Bible, and it clearly states that Elhanan killed Goliath.
The video also complained about the NIV removing firstborn from Matthew 1:25, although I thought that one was silly, since the same verse in the NIV points out that Mary was still a virgin. They also complained about the omission of Matthew 18:11, but looking back now, I don't see that this changes the context of the passage any at all.
No, it most certainly doesn't. Man, this guy quoted many verses with little understanding. It saddens me to hear of people who are so certain of what they believe, but so confused about why they believe it, especially when they believe something that simply isn't true.
I know. I'm glad I came to you for some input on this.
Unfortunately, Kevin, I'm out of time here, but maybe we can get together again sometime and look at some more of the complaints that people make against the different translations of the Bible.